You stand in the opulent atrium of a grand Roman villa, the air heavy with the scent of olive oil lamps flickering against mosaic walls that depict triumphant gods and conquered lands. Your silk tunic clings uncomfortably as you await your master's summons, your heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and unease, knowing that in this world of marble splendor and imperial decree, your role as a young attendant demands absolute obedience. The distant laughter of senators echoes through the corridors, but you sense the underlying tension, for what appears as luxurious companionship hides extraordinary challenges that redefine your very existence. Suddenly, the truth dawns upon you. This is no mere service. It is a life bound by customs that, while accepted in ancient Rome, reveal troubling realities far removed from the heroic tales etched in stone. In the annals of ancient Rome, where emperors wielded power over vast empires and societal norms shaped the lives of millions, the institution of male concubinage stood as a documented practice that intertwined personal relationships with the hierarchies of status and dominance. Historical records indicate that male concubines, often referred to as concubini, were typically young males of lower social standing, including slaves or freed individuals, who entered into stable relationships with freeborn Roman men, serving roles that combined companionship with intimate duties. This arrangement, prevalent from the late Republic through the imperial era, was not uncommon among the elite, as evidenced by literary sources such as the works of Catullus and Martial, which describe these relationships with a blend of poetic admiration and societal commentary. The concubiness held a position that was privileged yet precarious, elevated above ordinary slaves, but still subject to the whims of their patron, reflecting the broader Roman emphasis on masculine authority and the active role in such unions. As we delve into these hidden historical truths, grounded in documented evidence from inscriptions, legal texts, and contemporary accounts, we uncover the extraordinary challenges faced by these individuals, challenges that affected not only their personal well-being, but also the dynamics of power within Roman society. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Through this scholarly investigation, we will examine the systematic revelations of these practices, escalating from initial selection to the profound consequences on historical events, all while maintaining a focus on verifiable historical sources. The journey into the world of male concubinage in ancient Rome begins with the selection process, a practice rooted in the empire's vast slave trade and economic disparities, where young males from conquered provinces such as Syria, Cappadocia, or Greece were often acquired through markets or as spoils of war, their youth and appearance prioritized for roles that demanded aesthetic appeal and compliance. Historical analyses, including those drawn from the writings of Suetonius and Tacitus, suggest that these individuals, frequently between the ages of 12 and 18, underwent rigorous grooming regimens, involving specialized diets, physical exercises, and cosmetic applications to enhance their desirability, procedures that, while intended to align with Roman ideals of beauty, imposed significant physical and psychological strains. One particularly concerning aspect documented in imperial biographies involves the alteration of physical attributes. For instance, emperors like Nero are recorded as having arranged for the castration of favored youths, such as the case of Sporus, to preserve a youthful demeanor indefinitely, a medical intervention that carried inherent risks and long-term health complications, including hormonal imbalances and increased susceptibility to infections, as inferred from ancient medical texts like those of Galen. This practice, though not universal, highlights the extent to which personal autonomy was compromised, with the concubiness viewed not as an equal partner, but as an extension of the patron's status and pleasure, a dynamic reinforced by legal frameworks that afforded no protections against such modifications if performed within the bounds of ownership. Furthermore, inscriptions from funerary monuments, such as those catalogued in the Corpus Inscriptionum Latinarum, occasionally reference these relationships, portraying the concubinus in terms of loyalty and service, yet underscoring their subordinate position through the absence of reciprocal honors typically afforded to freeborn spouses. Escalating from selection, the daily routines of male concubines encompassed a range of duties that blurred the lines between domestic service and intimate companionship, often requiring them to attend banquets, accompany their patrons on travels, and participate in private entertainments, all while navigating the intricate social etiquette of Roman households. Contemporary observer accounts, such as those in Petronius' Satyricon, illustrate scenes where these young men perform tasks like serving wine or providing musical interludes. But beneath this veneer lay the expectation of fulfilling more personal roles, which could lead to emotional dependencies and vulnerabilities. A troubling revelation emerges from psychological analyses applied to historical behavior. The constant need to maintain favor fostered a state of perpetual anxiety, as rejection or replacement could result in demotion to menial labor or even resale, outcomes documented in legal papyri from the period that detail the transfer of such individuals as property. In addition, medical records and philosophical treatises, including Seneca's moral essays, critique the effeminization processes imposed, where long hair, depilation, and ornate clothing were mandated to accentuate a delicate appearance, practices that not only challenge traditional Roman notions of masculinity, but also expose the concubinus to ridicule and social ostracism outside the patron's protection. These elements combined to create an environment where what was normal in elite circles imposed extraordinary emotional and physical tolls, with some sources hinting at the use of disciplinary measures, such as confinement or corrective interventions, to ensure compliance, though always framed within the legal rights of the paterfamilias. Building upon these foundations, another layer of revelation concerns the integration of male concubines into family structures, where they sometimes coexisted with legitimate wives and children, leading to complex interpersonal dynamics that could escalate into jealousy and conflict. Historical evidence from Catullus's wedding hymn, Poem 61, poignantly describes the anxiety of a concubinus facing displacement upon his patron's marriage, his long locks shorn as a symbol of transition, forcing him to seek gratification among female slaves, a shift that marked the end of his privileged status and the onset of potential isolation. This poetic account, while dramatized, aligns with broader patterns observed in epigraphic evidence, where concubini are mentioned in household tombs alongside family members, suggesting a degree of acceptance, yet highlighting the precariousness of their position, as they lack the legal safeguards of marriage and could be discarded without recourse. Moreover, imperial examples amplify these challenges. Hadrian's relationship with Antinous, though often romanticized, culminated in the youth's mysterious death during a Nile voyage, speculated by some ancient historians like Dio Cassius to involve ritual sacrifice or suicide prompted by the emperor's demands, an event that led to Antinous' deification but underscored the ultimate disposability inherent in such roles. Psychological deterioration is evident in these narratives, with the constant performance of subservience contributing to a fractured sense of self, as modern scholarly interpretations draw parallels to identity suppression in hierarchical systems. As we progress to more disturbing details, the medical and health challenges faced by male concubines come into sharper focus, with documented procedures that, while clinically intended to enhance appeal, often resulted in lifelong complications. The practice of castration, as exemplified by Nero's treatment of Sporus, detailed in Suetonius's Lives of the Caesars, involves surgical removal of reproductive organs, a procedure that, according to medical historians analyzing Galen's works, carried risks of hemorrhaging challenges, infection, and chronic pain, altering the individual's hormonal balance and leading to conditions such as osteoporosis or metabolic disorders in later life. This intervention was not isolated. Domitian's edict banning castration, as recorded by Philostratus, indicates its prevalence and the societal recognition of its troubling nature, though enforcement was inconsistent, allowing the trade in eunuch slaves to persist. Furthermore, the imposition of depilation and other beauty regimens exposed skin to irritants and potential scarring, while diets restricted to maintain a slender physique could lead to nutritional deficiencies, all of which compounded the physical toll of their roles. Quotes from contemporary sources, such as Marshall's epigrams, satirize these figures with descriptions of their softened features, yet reveal the underlying disdain that exacerbated their social marginalization, blending clinical detachment with the human cost of such transformations. Delving deeper, the escalation reveals the role of male concubines in public spectacles and political intrigue, where their visibility could invite scrutiny and exploitation beyond private spheres. In the courts of emperors, concubini like Sporus were paraded in public, dressed in empress-like attire, as Suetonius recounts Nero's mock marriage and subsequent displays, which not only humiliated the individual, but also served as political statements, blurring lines between personal affection and imperial propaganda. This public exposure heightened risks, as jealousy from other courtiers or the populace could lead to conspiracies or sudden fall from grace, with historical records indicating instances where such favorites were eliminated to curb their influence, though phrased in terms of political necessity rather than personal vendetta. Psychological analysis suggests that this constant visibility fostered paranoia, as the concubinists navigated alliances while aware of their expendability, a dynamic evident in the fate of Commodus's favorites, whose rises and falls mirror the emperor's whims, leading to abrupt ends documented in the Historia Augusta. These revelations accumulate, each more concerning than the last, painting a picture of lives shaped by systemic inequalities that prioritized elite desires over individual well-being. Transitioning to the consequences and impact, the personal costs to male concubines were profound, affecting their relationships and mental states in ways that rippled through their limited social networks. The lack of legal recognition meant no inheritance rights or protections, leaving them vulnerable upon a patron's death, as seen in cases where they were bequeathed like property, a practice Marshall alludes to with ironic gravity, passing from father to son and perpetuating cycles of dependency. This instability often led to deteriorated mental health, with isolation and rejection fostering despair, inferred from literary depictions of melancholic figures in Ovid's works. On a familial level, interactions with spouses could breed resentment. Wives, aware of these arrangements, sometimes exerted influence to marginalize the concubiness, as hinted in Juvenal's satires critiquing household rivalries. Moreover, children born from parallel unions, though rare in male concubinage, complicated legacies, but more often, the concubiness's childlessness reinforced their outsider status, denying them the continuity afforded to legitimate heirs. Politically, the private challenges of male concubinage occasionally intersected with public duties, influencing historical events through the sway favorites held over powerful figures. Emperors like Elagabalus, whose relationships with male companions are chronicled by Herodian, saw personal affections translate into policy favors, granting concubini administrative roles that provoked senatorial backlash and contributed to instability, culminating in assassinations that altered dynastic successions. This collateral damage extended to courtiers and subjects. Scandals surrounding these relationships eroded public trust, as seen in the propaganda against Nero post-Porus, where private excesses were linked to tyrannical rule, affecting governance and leading to revolts. Attempts at concealment were desperate, involving discreet arrangements or public denials. Yet leaks through gossip and literature often exposed them, amplifying political repercussions and underscoring how intimate dysfunctions could undermine imperial authority. The escalation and deterioration intensified as conditions worsened over time, with aging concubini facing diminished favor and harsher realities. As youth faded, typically by the early 20s, patrons sought replacements, relegating former favorites to lesser roles or abandonment, a progression Catullus captures in the symbolic haircutting ritual, signaling irreversible change. Desperate measures ensued. including self-imposed regimens to prolong appeal or alliances with other household members for security. But these often failed, leading to increased isolation. Paranoia mounted as awareness of replaceability bred distrust, documented in Tacitus's accounts of court intrigues, where favorites plotted preemptively, only to accelerate their downfall. The final collapse manifested in complete loss of status, with some resorting to prostitution or beggary, their once privileged lives reduced to survival amid Rome's underbelly, a tragic arc that epitomized the fragility of their existence. In the realm of death and revelation, the final moments of many male concubines were marked by the lingering effects of their roles, with health complications from earlier interventions playing a pivotal part. Autopsies or post-death examinations, though rare in ancient records, occasionally confirm suspicions, as in Antinous' drowning, speculated by some to stem from despair over his waning influence. Historical cover-ups sanitized these stories, with official narratives omitting troubling details to preserve legacies, yet preserved evidence like inscriptions and literary fragments allows modern scholars to reconstruct the truths. What remains, scattered tomb mentions and artifacts, testifies to their presence, offering glimpses into lives otherwise erased. Returning to that initial atrium scene, now transformed by our understanding, you no longer stand merely as an observer, but as a witness to the profound human costs hidden behind Rome's grandeur, where the flickering lamps illuminate not just opulence, but the shadows of systemic challenges that afflicted the vulnerable. These historical dysfunctions connect to broader themes about power and humanity, reminding us that unchecked authority often exacts extraordinary tolls on the powerless. Lessons echoed in contemporary reflections on inequality and exploitation. As we contemplate these ancient realities, a haunting image lingers. A forgotten youth, his once vibrant form, now a silent statue in the ruins, symbolizing the enduring tragedy of lives shaped by forces beyond their control.